Hello, and today we'll begin Chapter 10 for Maelbjorn. The voices. I'm surrounded by voices. As I try to sit up, all I can manage to do is cough my lungs out as I feel my ribs are about to burst. Easy, boy. I'm trying my best to see what's happening, but my vision is blurry, and the voices are getting louder. Simi? Oh, you're alright. Finally, the silhouette of the defendant fox begins to appear, then that of the prince right next to her. I think. I realize I'm lying in my bed where a moment ago I was in NeveN's office. Then I remember the bear who pulled me out in the flames. NeveN, he. Once again, I'm seized by a cough as Maelbjorn approaches to take my hand. He won't be a problem anymore. He's dead. Finally, I can look at the bear as I see out of the corner of my eye that Simi is watching me with a worried look. What happened? The flames reached him before we could get to him. What about the documents? Some of them were damaged, but we should be able to recover most of it. I can only let out a huge sigh of relief as I try to remember everything that happened. How did you find me? Well, Sven came to warn us as soon as he realized that NeveN wasn't going to show up for the meeting you had arranged for your plan. That last word is uttered with a touch of disdain. I suppose I could have prepared myself better. In any case, you should consider yourself lucky. We found traces of inkstone on NeveN's corpse. He could have killed you with it. He tried several times. Well, his guards tried, at least. Not him directly. Which is strange, now that I think about it. The only time he used his powers, it wasn't directed at me. It wasn't directed against me. It was to intensify the fire in his archives. The bear pouts pensively as he glances at Simi, who crosses her arms and frowns. It could mean that what's in those documents is potentially more important than the death of an avatar. That's no small thing. Is there anything else you should tell us? Well, his guards didn't use their plans. And in my visions, they tried to kill me, but I'm not sure that was their goal. I think they wanted to capture me first and foremost. I imagine they wanted to avoid attracting attention. Using their powers in such an enclosed space would have been risky. But if they tried to capture you, that also implies that they had the means to extract you from the castle. Not to mention that they probably had an idea of what they were going to do with you next. Now that I've regained my senses, I'm getting out of bed to stretch my legs. Do you think McCad could be behind this? That's the main hypothesis. But why now? The prince sits up, growling, and I can see he's doing his best to contain his anger. McCad's attack weakened us, so NeveN must have wanted to rush this operation, especially if he realized you were investigating him. What worries me is that he wasn't the type to rush things. So if he thought this attack was enough to make us vulnerable to this kind of scheme, all of our enemies will see it as a weakness too. Well, luckily for us, it made him commit mistakes. Between this failed capture and the fact that he hired Sven without knowing whether he was trustworthy or not. Let's make sure the other traitors we have at the court fall into the same trap. I'm only now realizing that this whole mess won't improve Maelbjorn's image in the eyes of nobility. But I also know that this is what could push him to make a mistake. It's better to wait until we have solid evidence before attempting anything. But what you did, but what did you tell the nobles in the meantime? That the archives accidentally caught fire and that NeveN died in a blaze. But I imagine they won't be satisfied with that for very long. They'll make do with it as long as we don't have a better truth to give them. And to my great sorrow, Aeon is reconsidering Boreas's release in order to calm any tension that might result from the scroll's death. I can see in the bear's eyes how much he hates having to say that. It makes me wonder what Boreas could have done to deserve such hatred from him. Anyway, Simi, can I have some time with Eric? I have some important matters to discuss with him. The Phoenix shakes her head before giving me a strangely cold look. Say what you have to say, but let's not linger too long. Our enemies are on the move, and they won't be waiting. Don't worry, it'll be quick. She finally bows before exiting the room, leaving me alone with Maelbjorn, who sighs deeply. Was it really necessary to get yourself involved with NeveN in such a way? It's too late to back out now. I told you I was going to take a closer interest in the affairs of the kingdom, and now I have. You're lucky you only have a few seamed hairs, nothing that can't grow back. You could have lost much more, and so could I. Even though I can see that Maelbjorn is trying to hide the reproachful look which he is observing me, he is not succeeding in the least. I made my choice. Even though I can see that Maelbjorn is trying to hide the reproachful look with which he is observing me, he is not succeeding in the least. I made my choice. I know, and I was involved in it, in a way, so I can hardly blame you. I guess what's done is done. Just promise me you'll get some rest. I promise. And once you regain your strength, I'd like you to continue training with Vo. The way NeveN acted makes me think this isn't over yet, so I want you to be in top form. Do you think I'll be able to continue training with Gillant soon too? The business person darkens at my question. It's too early to say. His condition has stabilized, but the injuries are more serious than we thought yesterday. I'm not even sure he'll be able to walk again. Oh, and is he responsive? Yes and no. As my father said, he's conscious, but he's silent. And I don't know if it's because of his injuries or because of pride. I guess I shouldn't be surprised coming from Gillant. His warrior prowess is everything he is. In his eyes, I doubt he wants to live in a state where he can't fight. I still can't visit him. I don't think that's a good idea right now, Eric. He's fighting his own battle at the moment, the one against his own mind. I have a hard time hiding my disappointment. After all, what good am I if I can't be there to support a friend, at least with words? Don't worry. There will come a time when he needs us, and I'm counting on you to harp on him about everything you've done since then. I'm sure he'll be proud of you. Following these words, the prince gives me a warm smile while caressing my face with the tip of his fingers, and I can't help but press my muzzle against the palm of his hand and sigh. We will prevail together. You're right. There's no way we're going to let any more horrors happen within these walls. He nods before giving me one last smile, then heads for the exit when he gives Simi, poking her head through the door. Looking out the window, I realize that the day is already well underway. Damn, and I'm supposed to rest? Well, Come to think of it, Maelbjorn never specified what that meant. I can rest just fine while chatting with my friends. After a quick waltz, I head to Aket's room. Unfortunately, his door is closed. Who else can I visit? Tunok is probably busy as can be with everything that's happened, and Vikad is locked up. Not to mention the guards probably have orders not to let me near him. It's with my arms hanging limply at my sides that I realize most of the Africans whose company I enjoyed are no longer here. And Miss Rowan's cheerful mood and Gillant's grumpiness as well. Fuck, I shouldn't be thinking about that. To keep myself busy, I take a tour of the castle, even passing by the archives, to find them completely secured by a whole troop of guards. And all along the corridor, entire cohorts of pages are busy moving boxes full of documents. I didn't think Edwin's ambush would have such an impact on what is essentially the beating heart of the kingdom. In fact, I even wonder how much knowledge would disappear completely with the death of the old scroll. I wish he hadn't died so that he could answer for his actions, but that's probably just my curiosity talking. What could have possibly driven him to do what he did? A question that will probably never be answered now. So it's with a heavy heart that I resume my journey, doing my best to smile at the guards as I pass by. After all, I'm supposed to set an example. If I don't behave like a hero, who will? Besides, I feel like I'm just a scared kid. Just like them, probably. Gillant made it clear to me that this was our lot in life. Once back in my room, I collapsed to my bed with a long sigh. Maybe a nap wouldn't be such a bad idea after all. But I don't even have time for that since someone knocks on my door. Come in. The prince's gigantic frame quickly appears in the doorway as he smiles at me wearily. Back already? Not that I'm complaining. This day already seems endless. But at least all this chaos gives me the opportunity to visit you. And what exactly is the reason for your presence? Eon asked me to take care of Huapa, Tunok's brother. Take care of him? In what way? Not with an axe, that's for sure, which is a shame because that will probably be much easier. Maelbjorn. The bear can't help but let out a cavernous laugh as he joins me after closing the door. Sorry, I feel like my humor is getting a little darker with time. But the fact is, I'd like you to come with me to meet him. Meet Tunok's brother? Why? I thought it would be an opportunity for you to see our diplomacy up close. After a moment's hesitation, Maelbjorn clears his throat. He also asked if he could see you. That's flattering, but I don't really see why. I imagine it has something to do with your brand. Oh, I tend to forget that it's a curiosity for others. If only people wanted to see me purely for my talents as a singer for once. I see you that way, and as a wonderful partner too. The prince gives me a charming grin, and I can't help but smile back. You really need me to come, huh? Let's just say it could facilitate the situation. After nodding, I follow the bear who guards me through the corridors and up the stairs to the floor above mine. And why isn't Aeon taking care of it himself? After all, it must be a pretty important matter welcoming the second potential heir to the empire. He is busy with other current situation. Well, he is busy with our current situation because of Edwin. And he also gave me the choice between this and visiting the Bacadian delegation, and you understand that. That would be a bad idea, yes. No offense, but I think it takes some amount of tact to talk with them. Maelbjorn gives me an embarrassed look before looking around. What? I don't have any tact now? With the Bacadians? I have my doubts. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see that the prince is doing his best to hold back a snarl. After all, he must remain as noble as possible where his subjects can see him. But even though I keep my ears open and my eyes peeled, I don't see anyone else but us at the moment. You send my caution if you've seen what that Wathier brought here. That what? Yeah, the Wathier is one of the potential heirs to the throne of Akkad, although, according to our information, she has very little chance of reaching it, as there is a whole line of candidates who are more powerful than her politically. And what did she bring? Two slaves. She brought them to test us, that's obvious. Slaves. And you let her do that? You know, Aeon is extremely cautious, and that's even more true since Calathon's attack. If it were up to me, those Mercadian freaks would already be hanging from a rope. That might be a bit extreme. The bear sighs deeply before continuing. Anyway, I will adapt to the situation if there is a real need to talk to them. Whether I like these people or not, they remain one of the major powers in Telsun, if not the major power. Which is why it's important to get along well with Khazal. And which is also why it's important for a certain rabbit to come with me and satisfy the expectations of a somewhat hostile heir. He can't be that bad if he comes from the same family as Tanakh. Those two are like night and day, but you'll realize that soon enough. Oh, so I don't even get a little lesson on how to behave before I go to meet him? Aren't you worried things might get out of hand? As Maelbjorn gives me a jaded look, I just smile at him and wink. I'm putting my trust in you by taking you to this meeting. Don't abuse it. I never did. Despite the doubt that now seems to inhabit him, the prince continues to walk forward, sighing. At least you'll be in your element, perhaps even more than me. Don't be silly. You know very well how to behave in a social setting. I've seen it with my own eyes. I try to approach things logically. Sometimes it works, but other times our intricate nature makes us somewhat unpredictable. That's the kind of situation I'm afraid of. Is this Whopper that unstable? Unstable? No, more like guided by his emotions, especially when it comes to Tanakh. Is the relationship so complex? The ambassador has always seemed easy going to me. Although, come to think of it, he is very flamboyant. In my opinion, it's probably difficult to find a place next to him, and I know something about that because I'm the same. Once again, the bear struggles not to smile much at my remarks, but his lips begin to twist despite his composure. I don't have the details, but there's some kind of rivalry between the two. It's not just because they're both set to inherit the throne of Khazal. Before I have time to respond, I realize that we are arriving in the corridor reserved for the high-ranking guests. A guard wearing a strange-looking armor and wielding some kind of curved sword is guarding a door, but we pass by him without Maelbjorn stopping. I even get the impression that he is actively trying to ignore the guard. Could this be the Wathier's room? Finally, the prince stops in front of a door a little further on, and I follow him closely, eager to see the ambassador's brother. Once inside, we pass two guards, a feline with spotted fur like I've never seen before, what looks like some sort of crocodile. Then, once in the room itself, I suddenly feel like I'm standing in front of Tanakh, or rather someone with the same shape. Upon second thought, Maelbjorn's description of the lizard seems accurate to me. He is the exact opposite of Tanakh in the way he carries himself. His shoulders are tense and his stare is hard. I feel like I'm facing a soldier. As for its mood, well, let's say that it seems to be as blue as its scales. Prince Whopper, I'm glad to see you in good health, despite the harsh climate of our lands. Prince Maelbjorn, thank you for your welcome. Your castle is most charming. Even if it's meant to be a compliment, I see no worth in the lizard's expression. I also appreciate the presence of NeveN's avatar at your side. I'm not sure how to behave around him, so out of habit, I bow slightly. Let's be a little sycophantic, but for the sake of the kingdom and to please Maelbjorn. It's an honor to meet you, Prince Whopper. The imperial heir looks me up and down, and even though I try to gauge his reaction, he remains impassive. Eric is not only branded by NeveN, he is also our royal bard. You should hear him sing. It's a delight for the ears. As the bear smiles at me, I do my best not to blush, knowing full well that these compliments are not just empty words. I would love to hear that in most auspicious times, but I understand that the last few days have been quite turbulent here, and I would like to offer my condolences to your soldiers. Thank you. It's true that we've seen better days, but it's nothing we can't handle, especially with my brother around. I think this is the first time I've heard a hint of emotion in Whopper's voice, and it doesn't seem to be a positive one. But I thought he wouldn't talk about Tanaka in front of me, but I thought he wouldn't talk about Tanaka in front of me. Does he know that I know? Anyway, let's sit down. The prince sits in an armchair, and I do the same, but not without wondering what Whopper really wants from me. As heirs, I think it's important to discuss the fate of our respective kingdoms. I understand that the future of Phosphane is in your hands, Prince, more than it is in those of your fathers. My fathers are still in power for the moment. I'm afraid I can't negotiate much without their consent, and that's the reason for your presence. For now, you're right, but even though I don't wish it on you, things can change very quickly. I prefer to take a long-term view. Does he know about the state of Lusk? It's impossible to say for now, but he could very well be implying it. But let's not forget that you're the second heir. If I had to deal with someone for the future, I'd rather bet on Tanakh. The two princes look at each other impassively, yet I sense a tension in the air. From an outsider's perspective, these two seem to have more similarities than they might think. According to what people say, my brother spends his days in your kingdom frolicking, and we both know that's not why he's here. You're not implying that you're having your future emperor watched within our walls, are you? Rumors travel fast, and you know as well as I do that Tanaka is not known for his discretion, so no, there's no need to have him watched. But that's not the point. While he's here doing everything but what he's supposed to be doing, I'm in Kazal, forging alliances and strengthening my influence. In other words, I'm no stranger to my own people. I'm sure you know how important it is for a leader to be legitimate in their eyes. It's subtle, but something in the quest of the lizard's eyes tells me that these words are a jab at the legitimacy of the leaders of Phosphane. Maybe it's just my imagination, though. After everything Maelbjorn told me, I can't help but think about it. I suppose he'll interpret it that way, too. So, what? Are you going to prevent Tanakh from ascending to the throne? Do blood ties have no value in your kingdom? No, I have no hatred for my brother. I just don't think he's cut out to be ruler. But I've also heard that you and him get along well. Then why try to convince me? Precisely because you know him. Isn't the way he acts the best proof of his lack of reliability? I've never had to complain about his talents as an ambassador. Quite the contrary, he may have unconventional methods, but I'm only looking at the results. And then, as you noted, he's an avatar, and not just any avatar. He's Argon's avatar. I believe that your culture holds him in high esteem. Huapa lets out a sigh that I can barely hear, but it doesn't escape me. Traditions can sometimes hinder progress. You know that as well as I do. Perhaps for you, but your people will see in him a fiery future, if you'll pardon the pun. There's nothing more tenacious than a legend that comes to life, provided that said legend does not immolate itself at the slightest inconvenience. This time the lizard's gaze turns to me, and I feel as if it's piercing right through me. From avatar to avatar, you have surely shared some experiences. How do you manage the repercussions of your powers, and has my brother made any progress on this issue? He said he's not just here to see my powers. Could he have identified me as Maelbjorn to Nock's weak point? Alright, Eric trains alongside Vo. He doesn't share the details of his powers with Tanakh, and vice versa. Come on, let him answer. I wouldn't want to think you're hiding things from me. This time Huapa flashes a broad grin at Maelbjorn, and I realize he's doing it purely to try to throw him off balance, given his lack of expressiveness up to this point. But it seems the Faustian prince isn't falling for it, as he remains as stoic as ever. However, you would not have come all this way yourself if the position were as comfortable as you claim. Remember that you are a guest within these walls. Oh, but I didn't come all this way just to talk. My primary mission is to find out about my brother, and it is a mission that was given to me directly by my father, the Emperor. So can you at least tell me how Tanakh is doing with his powers, Avatar NeveN? My name is Eric, and as for your brother, I don't know much about him. As the prince told you, I rarely see him use his powers, but what he does is very impressive, I can assure you. I don't doubt it. I've seen it with my own eyes, and my room still remembers it. That said, you raise an interesting point. He rarely has the opportunity to use his powers. It's the same because that's exactly why he's here, to practice mastering them. Officially, I remind you that Tanakh is here as an ambassador. He can't just demonstrate his abilities in front of the entire court, or his identity will be revealed very quickly. I'm about to talk about the arena fight between Gillan and Tanakh before I decide not to. Let's not add to the problem. I can't speak for Tanakh when it comes to the progress of his powers and his control over them, but I can tell you one thing. Just a few months ago, I was nothing more than a wandering bard with no brand and no military training. Yet the day before yesterday, I stopped a threat that even the guards of this castle were unable to defeat. I could never have reached this potential without the teachings of the kingdom, and your brother benefits from these exact same lessons. Perhaps there are a few omissions or even outright lies in what I say, but nothing he can verify. I have heard a few rumors about your feats, indeed, the brain of NeveN, the one who controls time. I'm struggling internally not to correct him as I was corrected by Tess. It's better to make sure he knows as little as possible. I understand that a lot of very powerful people would love to have that power in their hands. I've already been made aware of that a few times. Not enough, clearly. We'll offer Eric and your brother all the means necessary for the protection, if that's what you're worried about. Huapa lets out a long sigh, and I see his features soften as he looks away as if trying to hide his face. Tanak doesn't have much to fear anyway. Indeed, there is silence for a few seconds, and I see the lizard rub his eyes as he inhales deeply. How is he? He was fine until he heard about your arrival. Whatever he thinks of me, I'm concerned about him. Why not talk to him, then? Maybe I will eventually. I have arranged for you to meet in a discreet location. Quirky Huapa regains his composure. We'll see about that if I have time. After all, I still have to meet your fathers. Lusk is indisposed at the moment, so I imagine you'll be alone with Aeon. I advise to go easy on him because he's had some busy days lately. The two princes smile politely at each other, and Huapa nods. Thanks for the advice. Unfortunately, it's time for me to get ready. Maelbjorn stands up, and I do the same. It was a pleasure, Prince Huapa. I hope we'll have another opportunity to talk when the time is right for it. Likewise, Mayor. Likewise, Prince Maelbjorn, and I haven't given up hope of convincing you sooner or later. After letting out a small laugh, the lizard accompanies us to the exit. But I wait until we are far enough away to speak to the bear again. That was a little tense, wasn't it? Oh, on the contrary, I thought it was quite cordial. I've seen much worse. That's reassuring. I witnessed former tribal chiefs draw their weapons after a heated discussion several times. Believe me, it was a polite exchange, in Farsian terms, anyway. But you're betting a lot on Tanak's success. I don't really believe in my father's politics. Sure, they favor Tanak, but they prefer to play it safe by treating Huapa almost as his equal. As for me, well, Tanak is an ally. You could say he's a friend, you know? He is, in a way, but he'll be the leader of another nation if he gets his way. I can't afford to get too deeply involved with him. But to get back to what I was saying, this is being a natural ally, I think Tanak's powers are far more important than anything Huapa will do to obtain the throne. I see a look of sadness on Maelbjorn's face as he utters these words. He knows a thing or two about legitimacy and also about the importance of a brand when it comes to holding political power. I still wonder what's going on between Tanak and him. You told me it wasn't just about the throne's inheritance, right? I imagine there are one or two family dramas on top of that. Do you think he's pretending to care about him? No idea, but what I do know is that he can't show himself in Tanak's presence, let alone act friendly towards him. Why is that? Well, to some, it could be a sign that he approves of his brother as the future emperor. I imagine that's what he wants to avoid, which is why I suggested a discreet meeting with him. Everything always comes down to the smallest details. You'll never convince me that this is a life worth living. And yet, it's the one we're living every day. The bear smiles slightly as he looks at me. Oh, my God, what? Yeah! Well, to some, it could be a sign that he approves of his brother as the future emperor. I imagine that's what he wants to avoid, which is why I suggested a discreet meeting with him. Everything always comes down to the smallest details. You'll never convince me that this is a life worth living. And yet it's the one that we're living every day. The bear smiles slightly as he looks at me, and I return his gaze with a hint of amusement. You're really one of the few people who makes this prospect a little more appealing. You little charmer. I can't help but let out a quiet laugh before quickly gathering myself when I hear voices coming from around the corner. But just as I'm about to wish Maelbjorn a good day, a young guard comes rushing towards us at full speed. Lord Maelbjorn, Lady Simi asked me to find you urgently. The prince gives me a worried sideways glance, and I can't help thinking about everything that has already happened in the last few days. Where is she? She is waiting for you in your personal library, my lord. Thank you. You're dismissed, soldier. The guard salutes Maelbjorn in a rather unmilitary manner before leaving with a brisk step and a bare haste for the library. As for me, well, I start to follow him without really knowing if I'm supposed to. Do you know what's going on? It's in my library that we set up the study center for the documents archived by NeveN, the ones he tried to destroy by fire. So, there's a chance we'll know more about his operations very soon. I hope all the chaos caused by my visit to the Scroll's office will serve a purpose. I hope that Simi was able to find something useful. And at the same time, I have some kind of inexplicable fear deep inside me, twisting my guts. Before I have time to think about it, Maelbjorn rushes into the library, and we find a dozen Africans busy around a table covered with pieces of papers with slightly burnt edges. I blink to make sure of what I'm seeing. Aeon is among them, working on sorting through the scraps of documents. But before I have time to say anything to the prince, Simi joins us, accompanied by her son Odu. Prince, Eric, we have new information. If my father is here, I suppose it's important. Indeed, NeveN had more influence than we imagined. Is that surprising, given that he had control over the royal treasury? I know the idea of making a traitor the kingdom's treasurer seemed strange, even downright stupid, but we kept a constant eye on him and what he was doing with our gold. And from the outside, everything looked fine. The defendant beckons us to approach another table where the restored documents had been laid out. On the other hand, NeveN's personal expenses, the ones he paid for with his own money, that's another story. Maelbjorn leans over the document, and I do the same, trying to read what's on it. But the prince is quicker than me at this little game. These are the names of the arena fighters who were at my birthday party, right next to the sums NeveN awarded them. But they always get a salary from the kingdom in addition to the tournament prizes, which makes the transaction all the more suspicious. Where are they now? The spy mistress shrugs helplessly, glancing briefly at her son. We didn't think it necessary to follow some unknown warriors. There are too many of them who come and go into the city. The question remains, why were they paid directly by NeveN? There are only names and numbers. The old squirrel was smart enough not to leave any more information on that side. If he tried to burn those papers, it means they weren't up to anything good. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Aeon joining us, and he greets me with a brief nod. If Maelbjorn hadn't intervened in time, all this information would have been lost for good. You can thank Eric most of all. He put in even more effort than I did. The white tiger simply nods in my direction before turning his attention back to a document he is holding in his hands. Would it kill him to say thank you for once? As I feared, this document proves that NeveN had also interfered in certain matters concerning Makad. He was paying soldiers at all the border posts, which may explain the lack of information we had about our dear neighbors. So NeveN was working for Makad, for or with them, but he was surely not the only one. Treason on this scale necessarily involves the noble families. Let's not jump to conclusions, Maelbjorn. You know the dangers of making accusations without proof. And I also know the dangers of inaction. The father and son glare at each other the father and son glare at each other, but do not take the argument any further, as Simi steps between them and speaks in a sharp tone. I have the life of a son at stake in this matter, so save your family's quarrels for later. I imagine my confusion is obvious when Odu smiles at me and shakes his head. She's not talking about me. I have a brother in my kind. He's our main link to the country since he decided to go back there, and we haven't heard from him in a while. Do you think he could have been discovered because of NeveN? The documents don't say anything about that at the moment. A heavy silence descends on the room as Simi casts a desperate glance at Odu, who puts an arm around her shoulder. Those bastards better not touch a hair on Kata's head. We'll have the opportunity to respond to Makad's behavior in due time. Don't worry about it. What about the delegation? Are we supposed to act as if nothing had happened, even though they are within these walls? What do you plan to do? Hang them on the ramparts in full view of the city so that everyone can see them? We could take them hostage and demand a few answers from Makad. Dorothea Zerud isn't worth much in the eyes of the traitor king who sits on the throne there, and she will be seen as one less obstacle by the other heirs. In other words, they'll let her die in our presence rather than do anything for her. And I won't take the West or start a war based on assumptions. We have more than assumptions. We have proof that the enemy is actively working to destroy us. War will come whether we want it or not. The bear's voice echoes through the room, and I realize that the scholars present are doing their best to look away and pretend nothing is happening, but their ears are perked up, listening intently to the discussion. But despite the rage boiling inside the bear, Aeon remains calm, and I would even say that a hint of sadness can be heard in his voice when he finally responds. Well, may this war come as late as possible. We haven't seen or experienced conflict. You don't even know what the word war means. All you have are theories and stories from your books. Your father and I have been through horrors you can't even imagine, unless Sully wouldn't want you or anyone else to have to go through a similar experience. The prince seems somewhat distraught, and I can see him struggling between the desire to get even more upset and the wish to calm things down. But in the end, the second option wins out. I can't stand being unable to do anything. I feel like a spectator in my own kingdom, and I understand your frustrations. There will be time for action, but for now, we must keep a cool head. Believe me, kid, I'm the first one who wants to slip a knife between that Zerud's ribs, but it could have too many repercussions to let our desires take over. You said yourself she's a minor, or a Thea. How bad can it be if we capture or even kill her? Her death will have no impact on Makad, as I've always said. On the other hand, some of her compatriots will be more than happy to use it as an excuse to declare war on us once and for all. Do our southern neighbors really want this war? It's a complex subject, and we could probably spend hours discussing it. For now, it's NeveN we're interested in. The target heads back to the table where the documents are being restored, and we follow close behind. One of the Anthracans studying them hands us what appears to be a very short letter, which the king reads thoroughly. NeveN managed to get his hands on a shipment of inkstones, and he had sent it to Makad. Still no name for the recipient, but there is a letter, an M. The number of atrocities they will be capable of with even a single stone. Yet you have banned the mining of ink stones for some time now, my king. Indeed, which means he has been plotting with the enemy for several years at the very least. All that just to rush things when we're finally getting close to the truth. That's strange. He was old, so maybe he wasn't all there anymore, and paranoia was eating away at him. I don't know. Every time I dealt with him, he seemed more or less sane to me. The crazy look the squirrel gave me before being devoured by the flames makes me doubt my own words somewhat, but in general, he seemed stable. Maybe he was pressed for time. How so? The other fighters he paid for your birthday, we don't know yet why they were paid. He was clearly planning something that required muscle, and as far as we know, they haven't acted yet. But if Edwin only wanted muscle, any mercenary from Phosphane would have done the job, and it would have been much less suspicious to pay them. The prince frowns thoughtfully as his gaze wanders over the paper. Perhaps he needed a level of loyalty that a mercenary could not provide. But that doesn't explain why he was in such a hurry that he fell into such a crude trap. It's always nice to receive compliments. On the contrary, I think it would make perfect sense. Gladiators are foreigners, so they're not under Phosphane's direct command, in addition to being professional soldiers. This event was for sure the best way to bring foreign soldiers into the capital without attracting unwanted attention. And no one knows if they left afterwards. What I'm also getting at is that Edwin didn't just need muscle, he needed warriors. But there aren't enough of them to do anything major. Indeed, so we'd be looking at some kind of special operation, something that requires a certain amount of preparation and a small number of personnel, so that as few people as possible are aware of it. That's the best way to avoid leaks. That kind of operation also requires extraordinary precision. Whatever Edwin had planned, he was going to have to act very, very soon. We all stare at each other as if trying to grasp the urgency of the situation. And it's Aeon who is the first to clap his hands to bring us all back to reality. Maelbjorn, Eric, I want you to go see Boyas in the dungeons. With any luck, he'll have something to say in exchange for his release. Is he involved in this? If anyone is, it's him. He's one of Mikai's most vocal supporters, from the ones that are still alive at least. Enough chatter. We must move quickly. Simi, you will continue to search through these documents. Let's hope you'll find more information. Yes, my king. As for me, I'll take charge as a guard. We'll come to the city in search of these arena fighters. As soon as we call in reinforcements from outside, we don't yet know how compromised the army is, so I prefer to rely on those we can trust. If Edwin played his cards right, isn't there a risk that the royal guard will also be compromised, especially since Calathon's attack? We've been keeping a close eye on Edwin since you confirmed our fears about him, so I doubt he would have attempted anything so risky even if Gillant wasn't there to check on every new recruit. And I personally oversaw the hiring of the replacements. They are all veterans who have put their lives on the line for the kingdom by battling the organized band. And I personally oversaw the hiring of the replacements. They are all veterans who have put their lives on the line for the kingdom by battling the organized bands that roam the country. If we can't trust such Africans, then I doubt we can trust anyone. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of being suspicious of everyone. These words weigh heavily on the atmosphere in the room, but fortunately, Maelbjorn breaks this awkward silence. Father, I would also like to inform Tanakh of the situation. The nobles will be less inclined to rebel if they learn that we have Kazal's full support. Good idea, but make sure it doesn't reach his brother's ears too quickly if possible. I'm not sure I trust him either after our meeting. Tanakh remains our safest bet, even if we shouldn't rule out any possibilities. Good, I think we've covered everything that could be covered for now. Global Khazarian diplomacy will have to wait, I'm afraid. Aeon heads for the exit before giving us a piercing look. We'll have no more time to waste. Good luck to all, and may the gods be with you. Then he disappears and Simi follows close behind. Maelbjorn and I stare at each other for a moment as I try to understand the whole situation. This is a bloody mess. The prince begins to head for the exit and I follow him closely, speaking to him in a low voice so that no one else can hear. How are we supposed to get Boyas to talk? I doubt that a simple promise of release will be enough for him, especially if he thinks he can gain more by betraying the kingdom. He's a coward, so if he refuses this offer, I'll just threaten him directly. You're only going to threaten him, right? As I say this, I give the bear my most reproachful look, but he just smiles back at me. We'll see. But believe me, everything that happens to him is well deserved. Keep telling me that without ever explaining why. This time it's Maelbjorn's turn to look at me with his usual jaded expression as he sighs so loudly that it becomes a growl. I'm just protecting you by not going into details. I face a monster and now we potentially have a whole rebellion on our hands. Do you really think a few words are going to upset me? I won't discuss this any further. At the bend of the corridor, I realize that we are finally alone, with no prying ears to disturb us. So with all my strength, I throw myself against the prince, hoping to stop him in his tracks. But all I manage to do is smash my shoulder against his armor. Ouch. What were you hoping to accomplish, huh? Seeing the bear's half-hearty, half-playful expression, I feel my blood boil, so I start humming, which is enough to make him stop. Eric, don't even try that. What if I do it anyway? I finish my little song before freezing his boots, and the bear pulls on them before quickly stopping when he realizes it won't work. Then he crosses his arms and growls, his round ears flapping in the air. You don't have time for this kind of childishness. You can make it very quickly. What if someone walks by? Just act like nothing happened. Ugh. Under Maelbjorn's increasingly grumpy gaze, I just pretend nothing is happening, looking at the length of my claws or waving my big ears innocently. Then the prince sighs again, rubbing his eyes. Well, I guess I have no choice, indeed. But you won't tell anyone, I promise. Good. We know from reliable sources that Boyas, in addition to consorting with Makad, was also a tyrant in his lands long before my fathers came to power. He mistreated his subjects, and I'm not talking about simple executions. He had innocent people tortured in the worst ways possible. As I release my powers, I can't help but feel a sense of guilt wash over me. And your fathers kept him as a lord despite knowing that? It was precisely because they knew what he had done that they kept him. They saw it as the perfect means of pressure on a lord who would never rebel. Of course, they made him promise never to do it again, and as far as I know, he kept his word. But the damage is done. And why didn't you want to tell that to me? How did not knowing protect me? The prince lowers his gaze as his ears flatten against his head. I don't know, I was hoping to protect what little innocence you had left, that's all. And somewhere deep down, I think I'm ashamed too, ashamed of having to keep these kinds of secrets, and ashamed that we have to resort to these kinds of methods if we want to keep this kingdom together. Faced with the bear's resentment, I can only feel moved, so I approach him to stroke his muzzle while trying to catch his eye. You have nothing to be ashamed of. It was your father's choice, not yours. And besides, deep down, it's because of me that you didn't kill him, so I share that burden. No, that was my choice and no one else's. He deserved to be executed on the spot, but not like that. Not in front of everyone. Maybe he deserved it, maybe not, but the fact is he's alive now, and we need him. So how do we proceed? The prince resumes his walk towards the Gauls while answering me. Let me handle it. If the prospect of his release isn't enough for Brass, then perhaps it's time to remind him of what we know about his favorite pastime. If he was really planning to betray the kings in favor of Makad, something tells me that won't be enough. And finally, we arrive in the hallway in front of the prison, which is even more crowded with guards than usual. They immediately salute when they see Maelbjorn, and he nods to them before entering. You can rest. Then someone appears whom I never expected to see in such a place. Look who's here. The ambassador is surrounded by guards with big smiles on their faces, at least until they see the prince. Once they do, they all become dead serious again, except for the lizard. The Farsons and their love for discipline. But what are you doing here, dear prince? Just a routine visit. Nothing more. I'd like to know how Caladan's avatar is doing. Oh, so that's why Turnak is here. The ambassador motions for us to approach as the soldiers return to their posts. He guides us to a particularly reinforced cell. It has no bars, but it is armored with plates of metal that shine with an orange glow. He hasn't moved a hair or a scale. I'm not sure. He's got a bit of everything. As I try to approach the door, Maelbjorn pulls me by the arm, and I find myself instantly pressed against him. We're here for Brass, actually. Oh, and Ryan Bank sets the mystery of it. The situation is escalating quickly, and we could very well soon find ourselves facing a rebellion if we don't nip this in the bud. As he is summarizing what's in Edwin's documents, the bear paces back and forth in front of Tanakh. I will write a letter to my father. If I ask him to prepare troops at the border, I am sure he will not refuse you this help if things really go wrong. But until then, I'm afraid it will be up to Frostfang to manage his own problems. That's all we ask. We would like to avoid foreign interference as much as possible, even if it comes from a friendly country. Perfect. And Maelbjorn? I hope your little meeting with Guapo went well. The ambassador simply smiles at the bear, who rolls his eyes. He invited my father, who then sent me to take care of it. You know very well where I stand when it comes to Khazal. I just hope you won't keep secrets from me in the future. I hate being cheated on for another African. In a split second, Maelbjorn blushes under his fur and suits me an embarrassed look. Don't use such words in this context, Tanakh. This time the lizard's gaze turns towards me. That's true, I wouldn't want to make anyone jealous after all. Then he winks at me, which almost throws me off balance as well. Maybe you're the one who should end up behind bars. I smile back at him, hoping he won't continue down this path, tilting as it may be. Anyway, how's Vakar doing? He's been quieter lately. It's almost as if he's waiting for something. Let's hope it doesn't spell trouble for us. Can I at least take a look at his cell? I'd rather not risk stirring anything up in him. We're not even sure this place will be able to hold him, are we? Let's not give him another reason to test its limits, then. That's why I'm here. One wrong move, and I'll roast him in there like a delicious piece of venison in an oven. That's in poor taste. I'm just trying to lighten the mood. While Maelbjorn is busy lecturing Tanakh, I take the opportunity to peek through the door leading to Vakat's cell. At first it seems completely dark, but then I start to see something as my vision adjusts to the darkness. Two bright yellow eyes stare at me from the depths of the room. A silver one through me, and my hair stands on end as I step back, overcome by instinctive fear. Then the bear's arm closes around me, making me jump. You shouldn't be playing like that, Eric. I understand his curiosity. We're not even sure if there's anything left of a cod in there, after all. We have other, more pressing problems to deal with. Anything, I need you here to make sure this one doesn't add to the rest. And I am at your command, O Prince. The ambassador sends a mocking smile to the bear, who raises his snout to the ceiling with a sigh, then continues on his way to raise the cell. Tanakh is more relaxed than I would have thought. That's his way of dealing with stress. I just hope it doesn't make him lose sight of his mission. I thought you trusted him. As an ambassador, yes. As a guard, not so much. We found ourselves in front of the goat's cell, who is busy reading on his bed. Wes, we need to talk. And the world bard has to be here too. Yes, as slowly as possible, the Lord puts down his book before approaching the bars with a sardonic look on his face. Have you changed your mind about my release? Well, that will depend on you. We caught Edwin, and his personal library was full of more than interesting information. I don't know if Boyas is good at hiding his reaction or if he really doesn't know what's going on, but in any case, he's at least curious, judging by his raised eyebrows. What kind of information? The kind of information that could shake up the kingdom a bit, and also the kind of information that incriminates you. Even though I know full well that the prince is lying, I also understand that it's part of the game. But whatever Maelbjorn's goal may be, it causes the Lord of Kermar to respond in a curt tone. Accuse me directly with the evidence you have, or don't bother coming here. You don't have much to lose, Wales, but you have a lot to gain by helping us. And I don't see what you are trying. A foul gurgling sound escapes from the goat's throat as a grimace distorts his face. He then goes into convulsions, and Maelbjorn reaches through the bars to pull him towards him in a panic. Speak. What the? Just as I thought, Blair was about to open his mouth to reply, a huge bird's beak bursts from between his lips, tearing his jaw apart in a fountain of blood that splatters us. The prince immediately steps back, grabbing his axe as black wings forcefully emerge from the back of the Lord of Kermar, shattering his bones. Guards, Lasfus Bran! As I turn to see if Tanakh and the soldiers are coming to our aid, I realize that the corridor is darker than when we arrived. The torches have gone out, and the place is now lit only by the glow of the lizard's brand, and only the sound of twisting metal and cries of pain reaches us. It is only when the ambassador summons his flames that we understand the horror of the situation. The saddles came to life in grotesque forms, neither truly African nor truly animal, but all more or less avian, as they devour the guards as if they were mere pieces of meat. Bodies are torn apart and blood spilled. Not again, please. Not again. The Tanakh's desperate cry echoes through the corridor as his flames swirl in front of him. Forgive me. In a fraction of a second, a jet of flames pours towards the monster's forms and go from both the forms and the soldiers, whose piercing cries intensify. The heat crashes down on my snout, but I hardly have time to take in the situation before Maelbjorn pushes me aside so hard that I find myself on the ground. Turning around, I see that the bear is fighting with a creature that came out of wires, using his powers over the saddles to tear pieces off it here and there. As fear gnaws at my guts, As fear gnaws on my guts, I close my eyes to find some semblance of peace, a small island of tranquility that will allow me to do what? I'm just pray. Am I even capable of stopping saddles that are not really tangible? And here I am trying to find excuses not to try. No. I fought Kelethon. I could do this. The saddles that had temporarily vanished on Tanak's side will form as I see the lizard retreat in response. I have to do this. My muscles relax and I find the strength to move again. Then I immediately began to sing, thinking of the circles of my brand. As the saddle attacking Maelbjorn prepares to plunge its beak into his armor, I focus on it, making it impenetrable even to sense of monstrosity. The attack is deflected, and fortunately the monster does not press its assault. Then, in the next instant, I release the prince so as not to hinder him, even though his chest plate is now dented. He is too preoccupied to even realize what is happening on the other side as hundreds of beaks swirl in a mass of incoherent saddle in our direction. But this time, in the middle of this mass, an African shape appears, though I am unable to see who it is. Screaming in rage, Tanak sends a new wave of flames crashing into the distorted creatures, but they continue to advance in our direction slowly but surely. Little by little, the glow of the bastard's flames dims as he gives me a panicked look. I can't fight him, not without killing us all. And as Tanak's attention is focused on me, one of the sharp beaks breaks away from the monstrous crowd and closes around the lizard's left arm, cutting it cleanly off. Tanak, screaming in pain, stumbles backward as a pool of blood forms beneath what is now a stump. All I can see next is Maelbjorn finally decapitating his saddle opponent before stepping between the lizard and the dark creatures. I see him bring his axe down on the lock of a cot cell, and the feeling that time itself is slowing down grips my gut. To be continued. Hello everyone. We hope you enjoyed this chapter. If you want more information about NeveN, feel free to follow us on Twitter. We also have a Discord allowing you to chat among community members. Finally, if you would like to support our project, we also have a Patreon that offers you a series of benefits such as builds 2 weeks in advance, but also unique stories about the characters of NeveN. If you like the VN, please also feel free to rate us on Israel. It will help us a lot. Once again, a big thanks to all of you, and see you soon. Yeah, so tonight ends up getting his arm chopped off in this update also. So that's even in Maelbjorn's route also. Because it was just in Tanak's route that we saw his arm chopped off, but now we get to see it get chopped off again in Maelbjorn's route. I wonder if this is going to be a case in all the routes. Where Tanak, no matter what happens, his arm gets chopped off. So anyway, I think this entity that whipped through Boyas's body, it probably didn't want Boyas to say something, so it just killed him and decided to attack. I think it's kind of like this monster, the McCann scent. I think that's what this thing is. I'm kind of like it. But anyway, it was clearly working for Makad. And it didn't want, at least from how I took it, it didn't want Boyas to reveal anything to Maelbjorn and them. So this monster basically just burst right out of Boyas and attacked. So gonna see the aftermath for the next time. So it looks like Boyas is dead. I mean, he got blood all over him and bones shattering, and he basically exploded, basically. So yeah, he's dead. He's dead, and what information they could have gotten from Boyas, that's gone now. So also I think that Squirrel Ezrin, he teamed with my opinion, I think he teamed with Makad so he can benefit himself economically, because I believe he's kind of like has something to do with the mines, and the mines are very valuable. And I guess by him working with Makad, by him working with Makad against his kingdom, the kingdom he serves, and he can enrich himself even more. And I mean, we knew that he was a traitorous person. He's more about his own interests, and he's willing to backstab to get what he wants, and he still hasn't changed. So that's what I think it is. Alright, so that was Maelbjorn's part for chapter 10. So we'll continue next time. Next time should be Tanak's route. So thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.